Okay, Todd Greenburg has resigned as NRL CEO in the midst of the coronavirus crisis and the lockdown. I think the timing is surprising, considering the situation as things stand. Yes, the NRL appointed a temporary CEO in his place, but this resignation was endorsed by the Australian Rugby League Commission. And Peter V'landys has accepted the resignation, and it was done by mutual consent. So clearly, the Australian Rugby League Commission has been looking at the headlines and the criticism of the handling of the situation. But you have to look at Todd Greenberg's record in charge of the NRL. 10 million Australian dollars has been misappropriated from the Players' Retirement Fund. It's not there. They signed a contractual arrangement in 2017 that when they signed the current TV deal and collective bargaining agreement that the retirement fund would always be at 30 million Australian dollars. A third of that's missing. That's not good enough. And you have to look at the amount of scandal he has presided over, be it clubs breaching salary cap, so the Sea Eagles, for example, the Sharks. You can't really blame him for Parramatta, but the way they handled the Parramatta situation when he was in charge, dealing out the punishment, compared to the other two clubs that I've mentioned, it seems one rule for one club, one rule for another, and etc. etc. The gifts to Cameron Smith's family last season as well raised some eyebrows in a lot of quarters. There was a lot of criticism there. But the big worry, apart from the money being misappropriated and them doing this media department that seems to be not worth the investment, the amount of player scandal and the weak leadership at the top, and the way they handled three individual cases last year really highlights things to me. The Jack de Belin situation, Greg Inglis drink drive conviction, and the Ben Barber casino incident. How the league handled them, it handled all three cases completely differently. Ben Barber never faced any criminal charges. He's banned for life. Greg Inglis gets a slap on the wrist for drink driving, and Jack de Belin, yes, the charges he is facing are exceptionally serious, but he was not allowed to play, yet he's not suspended. No fault, no stand down policy. And other players as well have misbehaved. Club CEOs have misbehaved. But when you look at his track record, it has been scandal after scandal after scandal for 4 years. If that happened in the private sector, outside of sport, let's say in a company, where a big multinational company was beset by negative headlines all the time, bad press, and constant scandal and misbehaviour of employees, the buck stops at the top. It stops with him. And the entire 4 years he's been in charge, you could say the Parramatta scandal with the salary cap breach predated him, but the punishment didn't match other clubs that did similar, such as Cronulla and the Manly Sea Eagles. So it seemed to be more of a case-by-case basis rather than this is the rules, this is what the punishment's going to be. The whole handling of the whole situation, poor governance, weak leadership. But the timing is really bizarre. You would have thought, okay, once they got play resumed and the season completed, then they might consider a change of leadership. But I think the Australian Rugby League Commission, Peter V'landys, has also, basically asked him to stand down before he was pushed, I think. But the amount of criticism he's faced in the 4 years in charge, it really does surprise me that he's hung on this long. The amount of negative press, anytime there's any kind of misbehaviour, be it players, clubs, the NRL itself, the buck has to stop with it. Todd Greenberg, he's the boss. I think the final nail in his coffin was, firstly starting the season in front of fans when the AFL behind closed doors, and then when clubs and players were debating whether to take salary cuts, wage deferrals, and they were basically saying we are facing financial ruin. The league could go bust, and it was then within 24 hours transpired that the pension fund's missing a third of its money. It should have gone then, really, but the timing's weird. But we'll see what happens. We'll see who replaces him long term in a permanent position. And Peter V'landys has a very, very tough job in trying to keep everything together with the Australian Rugby League Commission. But Todd Greenberg should have gone long before this season. He was never the right person to lead the league forward. It was just scandal after scandal after scandal, and then there's only so long that can continue. It's weak leadership. End of. He never really seemed to be really in charge of the situation. In my point of view, looking outwards in, as a fan looking in, and as someone who's watched a lot of the NRL over the last since his being in charge, since he's taken over, I've basically watched every season pretty much religiously, and you have to look at the governance side of it, and it has been absolutely shocking, lack of transparency, and I'm surprised he has lasted 4 years. But there we go. please leave your thoughts below. Do you think Todd Greenburg should have stayed on until play resumed and then some normality could come back? Because they've got to find a replacement now. And we're in the middle of a lockdown crisis, not a pandemic. So that's left the NRL a little bit up creek without a paddle and in an unfavourable situation. But whoever replaces him has got to look at the finances, the governance, and the structures in place, because they're clearly not good enough now. And the scandal has to stop. The image that the NRL has is a negative one right now with a lot of fans. The amount of scandal that has beset the league while he's been in charge, it doesn't look good. And we'll see what happens. But there we go. I'm going to leave that there. Thank you very much for watching. Please place your thoughts below and stay safe, everyone. And I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.